Hello, dudes and dudettes. It's Wednesday, April 3rd, 2013, and this is Day 9 Daily number 566, where we learn to be a better gamer, and we too are blown away at how swollen and meaningless the number of dailies has been. But that's okay, because it's the only thing that I can think to do. Excuse me. In today's daily, I'm going to go absolutely apeshit, because LiquidSnute is so good. We're going to see a true swarm-style Zerg. What do I mean by that? Huge numbers of units doing massive amounts of attacking all game long, not the usual hive tech stuff from Wings of Liberty. We're going to talk about why that's viable, what are the key components, and how Snute wiggles and worms his way around. And I'm nuts. I'm going to try to show two games which are both really long. I might go nuts. That's okay. We're going to try to do a lot of game watching today, and not a lot of looking at this giant deformed mutant head that I have to talk out of, where I secrete commentary from this hole in my face. Oh my god, that's awful. That's the nastiest thing anyone's ever said to me. My god, what happened to my self-esteem today? Why did I do that to myself? Well, either way, real torture is going to happen on Friday when I'm playing Dark Souls yet again. I'm actually probably going to load it up and practice on Thursday night, so I'm not so bad. After the show today will be the After Hours Gaming League semifinals between Amazon and Storm 8. The other semifinal, Microsoft and IBM. So we'll be doing that afterwards. It's going to be really exciting. I'm sure many of you are commenting that my face looks fine, but my shirt is out of focus. Isn't that just the teasest of teases? One thing I, of course, wanted to note, if you head over to day9.tv, there's two things that I wanted to note. One is if you need a 2v2 partner for the Fun Day Monday. Oh, whoops. Whoops, I haven't adjusted my screen resolution. Allow me to possibly crash the stream. Let me just do this real fast. Alright, I should be back. We should be good. Everything should be all good in the head. But either way, if you wanted to go to day9.tv, if you wanted a 2v2 partner for the Fun Day Monday, you just look and there's the Fun Day Monday partner thread right there, and you can just click on the big image and there's all the stuff. But I think more importantly, for today's daily, if you just go to the thing, there's a link to the replay pack, Team Liquid's replay pack of the week. If you just click on it, you'll get access to all the replays that we'll see today. So just so you know, those resources are there for here and also for yesterday's daily. You can just go there and, whoops, should be up here. Yep, there it is. Let's talk about ZvP. We got a lot of content to get through today, so let me just drink a little coffee. Drinking out of the chicken shirt. The chicken mug. I don't know why I said shirt. It's a chicken. There's a chicken on my mug. Alright, I need more coffee. I'm not thinking clearly. Alright, let's do it. Once upon a time, there was a game called Wings of Liberty. Ooh. How did Zerg vs. Protoss traditionally go? Well, Zergs, after a little bit of time, fixated on Stefano's style, which was maxed at 11 minutes, or if you're immortal, maxed at 12 minutes. So this is a lot of Ling-Roach aggression in the mid-game, a lot of attacking, a lot of getting in your face, Protoss, and that sort of thing. But this inevitably got shut down by stronger defensive Protosses like MC and eventually Parting developed good answers to this. So Zerg suddenly did not have the best attacking, or the best, I want to say, they just couldn't do much to Protoss. They had to receive Protoss attacks and deflect those. So how did we see the Zerg style evolve? It was essentially defensive in the early game, defensive in the mid game, and maybe you attack only if Protoss really botches, and then you're always going for that big hive tech Broodlord Infester. Why is our mid-game weak? Because we have slow Hydras, we have largely Roaches, which are not that great. Infestors are not the best offensive tool unless they're combined with another one of those huge power units. So bluntly, the two things that really drove Zerg towards Broodlord Infester are max mid-game armies suck. late game armies are really good. Ta-da! We now have the modern Wings of Liberty Zerg. So then we want to step into into Heart of the Swarm. Excuse me. In the start of the game, there's suddenly a lot more that Zerg needs to worry about. Mothership Core harass, Oracle harass, the usual stuff like fast Warp Gate, fast Robo, fast Phoenix / Void Ray, fast 4 to 8 gate attack, fast Blank. Dark Templar are a little bit easier to get now. All these are big possibilities. In fact, taking a third base very swiftly as a Protoss is quite common. Just going 1 gate, Mothership Core, third base. White Raw, very, very common utilizer of this. So with all these threats in mind, Zerg's now going, yeah, how do I stay alive in the mid game? But the layer tech. Ooh. All the juicy layer tech is what we're going to be seeing Snute utilize. Faster Mutalisks with health regen Hydralisks with their oh-so-devious speediness. These two things are enough for us to really love bloating the length of our layer tech. And I like the word bloating because I'm trying to give that word a positive connotation. Instead of looking at my stomach and going, why are you so bloated? I want it to feel nice to describe my own self. It's self-hate today, or what's with that? Wow. Good. Cool. So we're going to see Snute step in. We're going to talk a lot about the early game. We're going to watch basically as much as humanly possible. Yes, and let us enter the enabled sound zone. Enabled sound zone. So I am going to be going back to my completely adequate and reasonable and nothing to be self-conscious about face. I'm not going to be going to this that much. We're going to be staying in here the best. We're not going to be pausing that much. But we are going to go to the Snute cam for quite a bit. Snute is playing against one of Karante's newer players, Vipro, who's a Protoss down in the bottom right. Map's Newkirk City. I'll note right off the bat, I like this as an example map because very often maps where you see swarm-style Zerg would be Cloud Kingdom, where there's a whole bunch of counterattack paths. But here, you have this bottom path, which we see controlled by this watchtower. We have this top path, controlled by this watchtower. So there's not a lot of creativity in our attacking angles. I mean, we have one attacking angle, which is basically to the left of this third, and another attacking angle that's in this space. That's about it, right? And then maybe some drops up in the main. This is one of the maps where cross-map splitting is very typical. So this is why I have just incredibly deep respect for the way that Snute is going to be playing this game out. So first things first, let us talk about now until the 10-minute mark in terms of how do we stay alive. It's going to look extremely similar to Wings of Liberty type things, but there are more considerations to make. Hitting play, here we go. First things first, skeleton structure of the build from Snute is the same. Going pool, hatch, and then hatch. Immediately, I'm thinking, ooh, I'm feeling a little bit worried about Camp Snute because this could be possibly threatening to do this. However, Snute has gotten into the main and has seen the ever so important gas geysers go down. On other maps, there might need to be some Overlord scouting at the front. It should be there in time, depending on the map. Regardless, we are going to go for our queens, and we're going to be going, I'll say right now, all drones, no Zergling speed, and we're going to be getting gas at 6 minutes. This is very typical. However, there's already reads we must begin making. Snute parks himself here, spotting the gateway, this gas, this gas. Most importantly, the gateway, the core, and the forge. Okay, no zealot, no zealot, no zealot, no zealot, no zealot. Oh, there's the +1 on the forge, no zealot. Okay. Early zealot, stalker, mothership core harass. Not really going to happen. Maybe regular old stalker, mothership core harass, but cool. We're also not quite seeing the gas get taken yet. So since we're not that worried about some sort of mega aggressive mothership core harass, we don't see too many extra crazy precautions being taken. However, Snute does get a queen and another queen, actually going for 5 queens early. 5 queens early. See, 2 queens there, 3 queens out, 5 queens early. How is Snute getting the money to be able to afford to do this? Well, he's actually cutting an evolution chamber as one of his key bits. Now, this is typical. Layer at 7 minutes, extractor, roach warren. Getting the roach warren and the hat and the and this thing at the same time. Very typical. I do need to pause here because this is one of the key critical moments in this opening. So what information have we gleaned? We've gleaned that he is getting +1, that there was no zealot. I strongly am of the opinion that Snute really needs to be spotting here on these assimilators. On pretty much any map, you can get spotting done on these assimilators, and the earlier the assimilator, the less likely there is the possibility for some sort of aggression. So, this is surprisingly subtle, yet still critical. These queens are popping out at this base, where it's very likely that if an oracle appeared, it would just be 2 queens there to defend. Here, at this base, we see also 2 queens here to defend, and there's always the notion that we can run our 2 queens back up here and run this 1 queen down there and vice versa. So that's how we're going to deal with air. It's also how we're going to deal with mothership core pressure. Notice, the 2 queens are at point 1, where mothership core zealot harass could happen, and at point 2, where mothership core zealot harassment could happen. These queens are very critical for the air and mothership core combo. The only thing we really need to worry about for the next 90 seconds is early gateway pressure. What if he goes for that crazy Immortal Sentry all in? That's okay, that happens at 9 to 10 minutes is when that stuff goes down. So here's the Stalker showing up. No, he killed my creep tumor. Ah! Everything else is fairly typical. Evo Chambre, or not Evo Chamber, what am I talking about? Metabolic Chambre. And 2 additional gas geysers. Great. Some other blind maneuvers go down. Spore Crawler. Why? Dark Templar are a problem. Dark Templar are a problem. Shoink. And note the timing. Right around 8 minutes is when mega fast warp gates would strike us. Right around 8 minutes. So we're seeing how good this timing is. If we get struck right now, we just need a few extra seconds for the roaches to pop out. We have these 2 queens at one of the locations where warp gate attacks could strike. We have these 2 queens in another location where the warp gate attack could strike. And they're nearly joined together with creep, so these 2 queens can always run down and help these 2 queens and vice versa. So right now, Snute has done an amazing job accounting for absolutely all the possible threats that can be hurled at him in this game. So great. And then very notably, as these roaches pop out, we say to ourselves, wait a minute, I haven't seen any pressure. Cool, I'm going to go back to droning. So in fact, Snute, by literally having a really nicely timed build, and then by doing nothing, he's basically having seen nothing, he can basically say with relative certainty at around 9 minutes, wow, look at that. My opponent must be going for an Immortal Sentry all-in, or some sort of expand, or maybe some sort of Stalker with Blink all-in. But that's okay, because we have the Zerglings coming up, we have speed coming up, we have 10 roaches out, we have a pretty solid amount of drones. And all that said, I think you'd still probably have to do something fairly drastic as Snute to hold off an Immortal Sentry all-in. Which is kind of bumming me to say, but I'll be honest. There are extreme things that you can do where you just flood with a whole bunch of spines at your main base ramp and you just focus on counterattacking. TLO's done that quite a bit. But I think there's no straightforward way. I think you're a little too low on units to hold off the Immortal Sentry all-in, but it's still okay. It's still okay. I completely, firmly trust that Snute likely has an answer to that, but I just don't have I don't have the answer. I don't have a clear statement of what would be the adjustment. So Snute has done essentially a Wings of Liberty-esque build, right? He's gone for these hatches. What do we see is missing? No evolution chamber, no additional macro hatch, And we see 6 geysers already down. Alright, this is where I really need to start speeding up the gameplay because we're going to see a whole bunch of stuff come together right away. First of all, the moment that Snute gets the sense that there's not going to be any pressure, Insta-Spire, already preparing the transition to that, instantly takes another expansion. This is where Snute is going to begin doing what I like to call a bloated layer phase. Macro hatch, very late Evo chambers, and in fact, the general reasoning why I think Snute turns this into a long game is just because he forgets to start these upgrades. If he started them earlier, I think this game would have ended much more quickly. But the usual mass ling, mass transition into mass mutalisks, excellent. Not just to be able to defend these attacks, but to be able to bring the noise hard. Now, I just want to note the way that Snute is going to be playing this off that I think is just magnificent. Positioning everything well, getting his 15 Mutalisks up. Somewhat of a threatening push, but not like a game-ending push. Just continuing to mass. By the way, here is where I feel like Snute whiffs the 1-1 upgrade at 12 minutes. We'll come back to that in a bit. But still, Snute has a very nice army, still looking kinds of Wings of Liberty-y. But then the surround to apply the pressure, and the Mothership Core actually allows for a recall, to which Snute says, but great. This is the moment where a lot of Zergs would begin doing things like get up an infestation pit, begin droning up to make the wall of spines, and that sort of stuff. Not Snute. Snute's going to do a whole bunch of cool stuff. Some very cool stuff. Straight off the bat, going to begin the attacking, look for any window that he can. Even these windows that don't seem all that fantastic. Not a terrible angle, but not a fantastic one. And in the meantime, Snute is going to be taking an expand. And soon enough, a second expand. Some simple but aggressive engaging. And continues to drone up quite far, up to about 90-some. And generally, when you get into the 90s, you think, geez, this guy must be going Broodlord Infester. Nope, not Snute. Not for a long time. Look at all these bases, and even has the macro hatch in the main with its own macro queen. He's crazy. One other thing to note. Remember that 5-queen defense we had at the start? You know how I've been talking about the bloated layer tech, how we're going to have lots of units and it's going to be swarm host Zerg? Those 5 queens at the start really help accelerate our production. Because every time we build a hatch, one of these 5 queens we had earlier for defense just goes straight into the larva inject. So this actually is not an extra queen. If we actually look, we've only built 1 extra queen since the early game. We're up to 6. So, okay, great. Snute steps in, sees Phoenixes being massed. Phoenix is very, very effective against Mutalisks. By the way, Snute could have started these 1-1 upgrades at 12 minutes, but he's starting them at 14.5. No big deal. Snute is going to look for answers in layer tech. He's going to look for them in the layer tech frickin' phase. So that's why we're seeing the Corruptor go down. This is why we are seeing Baneling nests go down in case he begins trying to transition to some sort of Zealot Archon. Banelings work well. Getting double Hydralisk Den. This Roach Warren is a total mistake, but look at that double Hydralisk Den. Nom 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 nom. And continuing to seize opportunities to attack. Not an unbelievably good angle, but kind of an okay. To show the contrast, Snute's coming in here, target firing things like the Robo facility, but look at VPro's vision. Now come back and look at Snute's vision. Snute is sacrificing tech and sacrificing upgrades, but is still looking to be in pretty dominating position on the expanding front. So, okay, great, with these 2 Hydralisk Dens, and of course you can just get 1 early Hydralisk Den and get these 2 upgrades, but Snute knows that there's a mass Phoenix army. He sees 3 Stargates, and is continuing to be aggressive. Continuing to step in there. VPro is even getting the range for the Phoenixes, still trying to find angles of attack. finds a lot of Phoenixes that he'll be unlikely to comfortably run away with. Still trying to find poking angles. In the meantime, has gotten a lot of these bases really firmly up and running. And there's another moment that I want to look at coming up where we'll probably end up doing the pause. Doing all them pausings. Coming up right around here. Yeah, where Snute adds in these Hydralisks, and what does he do? Continue to attack. Now, I want to come look at some of the basic analytics that you would do in this circumstance. In production, +1 air weapons is almost done. Level 2 Stalkers, not really that many upgrades. In fact, level 3 is coming up. But Snute, look at this. Has a lot of bases, has reasonable saturation on 6 bases. Actually, yeah, especially on the gas. Is looking very, very nice in terms of his bank, and his larva count has 30 larvae, 97 drones. He's looking very good, but look at this units lost tab. This is one of my favorite instances of swarm-style Zerg. Snute has essentially hurled tons of units to do some damage directly. But it's the indirect damage where Snute has really succeeded. He's prevented VPro from taking any one of this, or this expands, and has kept the Protoss largely contained. So, I'm now going to go to a break. When we come back, we're going to talk a little bit more about the end of this game. We're 20 minutes into what will wind up being an hour-long game. Yeah. I'll be back. 3 minutes. 3 minutens.